Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel, Chronically Minimal, where I talk about all things chronic illness and share my journey to live a more simplistic, minimal life. Today I wanted to share some of the things I bring with me when I go out of town for a couple of days. So this is like a short trip, anything that's 7 days or less. I make sure that I have all of these essentials with me because I'm away from my apartment that has all of my stock, my medical stock, and I'm away from the hospital and the doctors I normally see. So these are the things that I bring with me on a trip to make sure that I have what I need in case anything were to happen, just so that I have my medications and I have my supplies covered for just a few days. So the first thing that I always make sure that I bring with me is my medication. I take quite a few, so it's easiest for me to just put it in some pill containers for the week. I always make sure that I have a couple of extra days worth of medication with me so that if something were to happen and I were to stay an extra night or two or get stuck due to travel or weather concerns, I always have the medication that I need with me. In addition to my everyday medication, I make sure that I bring my emergency meds or my PRN medication with me. I wanted to come up with a solution that allowed me to bring all of the medication I needed without having to bring all of my pill bottles. So a couple of years ago, when I flew to the EDS conference in Nashville, I came up with this solution. This is an essential oils bag, and it just has little pockets that you can fit like the little essential oil vials into. And what I did was I bought, these are called drams or mini medication bottles, and I think this is an 8 dram, D-R-A-M, dram container. And I just put a few of each of my medications in it and then labeled the top so I know what's in it. So this way I'm able to bring all of my emergency medication with me without having to bring like a gigantic bag of medications. So just a quick little peek inside, and that's what it looks like. So lately I've been having a lot of issues with my blood sugar, and blood sugar monitoring is something that I have to do now, and I need to make sure that I have all of the supplies that I need in order to keep my blood sugar under control. So the first thing is my glucometer. Like I showed you in my first video, I keep an extra in there, but this is my everyday glucometer, so I always carry this with me. Then I have a continuous glucose monitor that I'm using right now that sits under the skin and sends a message, a sensor, it's a receiver, sensor receiver, sends the information from my sensor to the phone, and it allows me to keep track of my glucose without having to do a finger prick every time. Right now I'm using the Freestyle Libre. This is not a product plug. So when I travel, I have the one that I'm currently wearing, but then I also make sure that I bring an extra one in case it were to get knocked off, or if my sensor ends and I need to put a new one on. So I always carry an extra sensor with me. And then with that, I have some supplies that go with it. So because I'm sensitive to adhesives and stuff, I put a couple barriers down between the sensor adhesive and my skin. So I start with some steroid spray. I do some Benadryl. And then I use a skin prep called No Sting Barrier Film. And I use all of that before I put a new sensor on. And then depending on the location of the sensor, I have a little bandage that I put over it to make sure it doesn't fall off. And then I carry an extra bottle of test strips for my glucometer. Okay, and the next thing I keep with me is my asthma supplies. So I have severe persistent asthma, which means that my asthma is hard to control all of the time. So despite taking all of the inhaled steroids and beta agonists and all of that, I still have pretty frequent issues with my asthma. So anytime I have an exacerbation, I have to make sure that I have the equipment that I need to help me breathe. And two of those things are my nebulizer and my BiPAP machine. So a lot of people with asthma are familiar with the nebulizer. I always bring the full-size one with me. Of course, I have the mini one in my purse, but I make sure that I have my regular nebulizer with me along with the medication that I need to use for it. And I always pack extra because you never know when you're going to have a flare and need medication. The other thing I keep with me is a BiPAP machine. Sometimes I have so much trouble getting air in and out that it's like breathing fatigue. And so I use a BiPAP machine, which stands for bi-level positive airway pressure. So there's greater pressure going in when I inhale and then less pressure when I exhale. Because for asthmatics, it's not breathing in that's difficult, it's actually getting air out that's difficult. So if you lower the pressure for the exhale, it makes it easier to breathe. So it helps me get air in and it's less pressure to allow me to get air out. And I always make sure that I have my BiPAP with me when I go on any kind of trip. Of course, I always bring a thermometer with me. You never know when you're going to get a temperature if you're sick or not feeling well. So I always make sure that I have my thermometer. Then finally, I have a couple of mobility devices. I get a lot of pain here in my thumb, especially if I'm driving for a long if I'm driving for a long period of time. I get a lot of pain here in my wrist or the base of my thumb, especially if I'm driving for an extended period of time. So I have this brace that I can put on that just provides some pressure and some stabilization. Makes it a little bit easier to drive if I'm driving a long distance. So I keep this with me, and then I always bring my cane with me. Actually, I keep it in my car, so if I'm going anywhere, I always have it with me. But I like to bring it with me on trips, especially if we go hiking or walking, if we go somewhere where I'm going to be walking for a long time, or if it's going to have uneven terrain or be slippery at all. I make sure that I have my cane with me. It just provides some extra stabilization. So I bring these. These are the only two like brace orthotic things that I bring with me on a trip. So that's it. When I'm going on a short trip, I just bring a few things with me, make sure I have the medication and the supplies that I need in case something were to happen. Of course, if things get worse, I always head back to my place where I have access to the doctors and hospital that I need for my care. So I hope you liked this video. If you have any suggestions or comments, make sure to leave them down below. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.